The death of Dana Plato would have come as a shock in the 1980s. Despite years of success, Plato struggled with the pressures of instant fame and started experimenting with drugs and alcohol as a young teen. Eventually, she was dismissed from her starring role in Different Strokes, and she had trouble finding other promising acting jobs afterward. After a long period of struggling with a difficult life, Dana passed away at the age of 34, an age considered the prime for any artist. However, her death was shrouded in countless tragedies. So, what secrets about Dana's death have been revealed? Just how desperate had her life become for her to choose such a painful end? All will be unveiled in this video. Stay until the end, as there are many surprising details you won't want to miss. This is the devastating story of Dana Plato's short life and tragic death. Early rise to fame. Dana Plato was born on November 7, 1964, in Maywood, California. Initially named Dana Michelle Strain, she was adopted by Dean and Kay Plato when she was a baby. Raised in the San Fernando Valley, Dana Plato experienced the divorce of her adoptive parents when she was 3 years old. Plato was primarily raised by her adoptive mother after her parents split. And before long, Kay Plato began taking Dana to casting calls. This led to several appearances in commercials. An actress from age 6, Plato appeared in hundreds of commercials and films in her childhood. But she hit her stride in Different Strokes, as Conrad Bain's small-screen 13-year-old daughter in the accidental household that included his 2 adopted black sons, actors Gary Coleman and Todd Bridges. Plato appeared on the show from its inception in 1978 until 1984, when her character moved to Paris to study. The sitcom became hugely successful, making stars of its young coterie of actors, including Dana Plato, Gary Coleman, and Todd Bridges. But with instant success came the danger of Hollywood excess, and Plato began experimenting with alcohol, marijuana, and cocaine alongside her young co-stars. Navigating the tide of success and adulation without healthy coping mechanisms soon spelled trouble for the young Plato. In 1983, Plato moved in with her future husband, guitarist Lanny Lambert, and she became pregnant around the age of 19 or 20. Because of this, Plato was written out of Different Strokes by the following year. The producers worried that Plato's personal life ruined the wholesomeness of her character and the squeaky clean image of the show. And just like that, she was dismissed from her starring role. The downward spiral. Though Dana Plato was no longer a starring character on Different Strokes, she did have the opportunity to return on the show's final seasons as a recurring guest star. But in the years following the birth of her son Tyler, she struggled to find other roles that would establish her as a serious actress. Before long, Plato was settling for B-movies and adult films as a way to make money. In the meantime, she was also spiraling further into drug addiction and alcoholism, issues that were steadily taking over her life. Her personal problems worsened in the late 1980s, especially when her husband ended their marriage and her mother died. Plato's former husband eventually gained legal custody of their son due to Plato's addiction. Plato hoped that a Playboy photo shoot in 1989 would lead to better offers in the entertainment industry and an improvement to her life in general. But no golden opportunities seemed to come. Meanwhile, Plato's newly hired accountant allegedly embezzled most of the money in her savings. Defeated, Plato moved to Las Vegas in yet another attempt to reinvigorate her career, but she still struggled to find steady work. And in 1991, she was arrested for robbing a video store in Sin City. Plato had clearly made little effort to disguise herself, as the clerk quickly recognized her. The clerk called 911 and famously told the dispatcher, "I've just been robbed by the girl who played Kimberly on Different Strokes." Police soon arrested her, and Plato was sentenced to 5 years of probation. But just a year later, she found herself in trouble again, this time for forging prescriptions for Valium. Dana Plato was sentenced to another 5 years of probation for her actions. Plato also conceded she suffered from alcoholism in the late 1980s. 3 years of non-stop drinking, she recalled for one interviewer in 1992. I didn't care for drugs much, I just wanted my alcohol. Plato posed for a nude pictorial layout in Playboy magazine in 1989. Then, Plato appeared in such low-budget films as the 1997 direct-to-video effort Different Strokes, a story of Jack and Jill, and in small theaters and dinner theaters. Among her live performances were roles in Last of the Red Hot Lovers in Canada in 1995 and in Frankie and Angie Get Married in Las Vegas and Atlanta in 1993. Her first professional work after drug and alcohol treatment was a Las Vegas stage review in 1992. She was also ordered to attend rehab, but it didn't seem to make a difference. Though she soon insisted that she was clean and sober, her loved ones doubted that claim and remained concerned about her health. All the while, Plato continued to find herself cast only in low-budget films, remaining on the fringes of the entertainment industry. The tragic death. On May 7, 1999, Dana Plato made an emotional appearance on The Howard Stern Show, during which she repeatedly claimed to be sober. But if she was hoping for a supportive environment, she didn't find it there. Many callers mocked her, and some even accused her of being stoned on the show. Angered and provoked, Plato offered to take a drug test to prove that she was clean, and even allowed a producer to cut off a few pieces of her hair. But Howard Stern said that Plato privately begged him not to test her hair as soon as they were off the air. She said, "I want my hair back." That's when I knew she was lying, Stern said. That's when I knew she must have been on drugs. Tragically, just 1 day later, Stern and the rest of America learned that testing Plato's hair for drugs wouldn't be necessary. Dana Plato died of an overdose on May 8, 1999. She was just 34 years old at the time, and her body was found in an RV that she had been sharing with her fiancé, Robert Menchaca. At the time, Plato had been in Moore, Oklahoma, to visit family members. At that moment, police initially believed that Dana Plato's death had been an accident. But a medical examiner later ruled her demise a suicide, citing the high level of drugs found in her system, including fatal concentrations of the muscle relaxant Soma and a generic form of the painkiller Lortab, and her history of suicidal tendencies. No suicide note was ever found. Todd Bridges, one of the trio from the sitcom Different Strokes, said he encouraged Plato to go to rehab. I know. What makes me so sad, I talked to her 2 days before she passed. I tried to get her into a rehab center. Unluckily, the death of Dana leads to the tragic end of 2 generations. You know what? Dana Plato's death would later have dire consequences for her son Tyler Lambert, who was just 14 years old at the time. Though the young teen had mostly grown up with his paternal grandmother, he was devastated by his mom's tragic end and eventually turned to drugs himself. And on May 6, 2010, just 2 days before the 11th anniversary of his mom's death, Tyler Lambert fatally shot himself. He was 25 years old. A series of tragedies ended with the painful passing of 2 generations. If she hadn't fallen into the traps that child stars often face, Dana's life might have turned out differently, and the tragedy of her life might not have repeated itself in the case of her poor son.